Alrighty, welcome to the final Fuzz Club of the year, and we're talking about our favorite albums of 2022 today. So before we get started, let's do some quick introductions. Ryan, you want to lead us off?
Sure, this is Ryan from High Desert Queen, and I look at My Spoon Productions. And I am in my car, but don't worry, I'm not driving. I'm being chauffeured by my wife right now. So happy to be here.
Paul?
I am Mr. Cosmic Motherfucking Peddler. Hell yeah.
Pat?
I'm Pat, the editor for Monster Riff.
Eddie?
I'm Eddie. I play bass in Lords of the Opium Church and guitar in The Endless.
Blake Kerr, Iwas.
And Ox and Zach.
Blackthrone Productions.
Zach from Blackthrone, Chris from Ox. What's up, y'all?
Right up. Cool. So what we did this year was all kind of vote on our favorite albums of the year, given Doom, Stoner, whatever else that we've been talking about. Pat, do you want to help me out a little bit, explain how we did the scoring a little bit, just so everyone kind of knows how we came up with this list?
Yeah, absolutely. So everyone was allowed to vote for their 10 favorite records within the space, and they had 10 slots that they could put their records into, and the favorite record got 10 points, the second favorite got 9, then 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And so then we collected all of that data, and the albums with the highest scores landed in the top 10. We had 3 slots that ended up in ties. We had 2 three-way ties and 1 two-way tie. So we had another round of voting to undo those to resolve the tiebreakers or to do the tiebreakers. And then we landed at the top 10 that we'll talk about today.
Cool. Yeah, so let's just dive right into it. At number 10, we had Firebreather, Dwell in the Fog. And one of the cool things about this list, after we got all finished with it, is that we talked about a handful of these albums on the Fuzz Club. And I don't know if that's because they were so great or we're just good at predicting the best records of the year or what exactly that means. But we did do an episode on Firebreather, Dwell in the Fog, if anyone wants to check that out.
Dude, I called it, man. I said that shit was gonna be one of the albums of the year, man.
You did.
The fucking thing is badass. I keep jamming that fucking album, dude. That album is sick.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was one of those records that I had to compliment you guys because I don't think it was one I didn't have it on my radar until we did that episode, and it's definitely still on my playlist right now. It's a solid record from beginning to end.
So good, man. Ooh,
yeah, I don't think that it would have landed in my top 10 without doing the episode on it, because as much as I listened to a couple songs and thought they were great, it was like really diving into it and listening to it like over and over that I was like, all right, yeah, I get why it's in top 10.
Man,
exactly.
For me, there's just so much music out there that sometimes I miss albums like this. And if Blake hadn't brought this album up, man, I probably never would have listened to it, and it blew my freaking mind. It was so good.
Yeah,
so good.
We probably should have done like the best album art of the year also, because I would have probably voted for this one too.
Album cover. I love the art on this.
Yeah. Shout out to Moon Patrol.
That's rad.
Yeah, Moon Patrol. I love that.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on this one? On number 10?
The horse octopus dual-headed. Yeah, it's crazy, man. I love it.
Right?
Horse
Doom, man. Straight Doom, man. Doom.
So what do you think that it was about this album that landed it at number 10 this year? What stands out as like a top 10 record of the year?
I think it's intensity. You know,
it's heavy.
It's
heavy.
It's a hammer to the face. You know,
and it's that sustained intensity too.
That's what I would say all the way through, man.
The whole time.
All the way through. Yep. All the way through, sustained intensity through the whole album. Phenomenal.
I think when we did the episode, I think we kind of touched on how it was kind of a good intro to some heavier Doom stuff too. So maybe that's why it was a little bit more accessible to more people, and we felt like it was good for people that were already into Doom or Stoner or whatever else that you were looking at. It was a good album for everybody, I think.
Right.
All right, let's move on. Number 9. The legendary Sasquatch with Fever Fantasy. Another one that I might vote for album art. It's pretty rad art, and the green and pink is not your typical color palette for a stoner rock album per se, but it's very cool.
And I believe, Ryan, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't Cass from Sasquatch do the album art?
I don't think so.
I know he was very excited about it. He showed it to me like before it came out. I know he had some. If he didn't do it, he had something to do with the art direction of it, which it was really cool. That was Cass from their bass player Sasquatch.
Oh, okay.
Because I know that I was floored when I first saw it because it looks like nothing they have ever done before in the past, or really anything in the genre.
Dude, it fucking threw me off. No, it did, man. It really threw me off. Just like you said, with the color scheme and everything, it really threw me off.
Yeah, the only reason I don't think that he was the one that did it is because I did a podcast episode with them like 9 months ago or something, and I brought up the artwork, and I just don't remember that being the case. But I can't think of the artist's name. We'll have to look it up.
He is also Mr. Humble, so he may not have said anything. That's just how he rolls.
Maybe he was just maybe he just wasn't telling me. But it is awesome. And I love Sasquatch. They're one of the best like stoner rock bands in my opinion. And this album was a little bit different for them. I thought like just a tad different for them, but awesome record.
Yeah, and it's crazy to me that it's number 9 because it was number 1 on my list. And I know I'm a bit biased because we had a chance to go on the road with these guys a little bit and became good friends. But I've also been a huge fan of these guys for decades, and so. I got to hear a lot of the material live before it came out, so I was raring and ready to go. And we all know that when you see a band live and hear a song live for the first time and then find out the record, it kind of brings up those good memories and things. So
absolutely,
that's why this was a superior record for me. I thought it was different for them, but still sounded every bit as fuzzy with great vocals as Sasquatch has in the past.
Yeah. Pat, I know you're a big Sasquatch fan. What did you think of this record?
So right before I get into that, Ian Permana was the artist.
Yeah,
thank you. Ianison. So yeah, I am a huge Sasquatch fan. I love their entire catalog. I was super pumped for this record. I didn't think it was bad. I thought it was really rock solid. I don't think it cracked my top 10 for the year, but I always look forward to the latest Sasquatch release. And so this was one of those albums that was kind of like Christmas morning, cracking it open and just kind of find that new experience. And it is a little bit of a different direction. It's still definitely Sasquatch.
Right.
But like Ryan said, it's a different type of sound from them.
How do you think it falls in their like body of work? Or does it rank in their already existing awesome catalog?
That's tough.
My favorite is 3, and then maybe 2, and then I go back and forth. Well, the last one was it Rational? What was the name of the
Maneuvers?
Maneuvers. And Rational Woman was the lead track. So Maneuvers, and I would probably put that 3, then maybe this, and then 1. Though some days I think that first album is their best. Going through that, it just depends on my mood. So it like fluctuates between their lowest and their highest.
Yeah. When I talked to them, I brought up like going back and listening to a lot of their music, and they were kind of like, I don't know about that first album so much. But
there's some bangers on there.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Absolutely,
back at that time when I was recording that episode with them, I went back and listened to it and was like, there's some really fun songs on this album. I don't think you can dismiss it. So
and I think that they do dismiss it because they feel like, it's now, I guess, so to say, and they wrote them so long ago. Like, I know they're like, as a band gets, they're tired of playing those songs. You know what I mean? It's been so long. So I think they just, they move past that record. But that first record is awesome.
They've had some lineup changes too. There might just be like one person left in that lineup at that time. So.
Keith's the only one. That's still from the original lineup.
Right. Yeah. All right. Any other thoughts on Sasquatch's Fever Fantasy?
I'll just say if that's number 9, look out. There's going to be a pretty hell of a freaking good list.
Yeah, we'll talk about what we thought of the year overall, but like if you're putting a Sasquatch album at number 9, that's saying something, I think.
Fuck yeah.
Agreed.
Cyclona,
Cyclona.
also another album that we talked about on a Fuzz Club episode, and we had great things to say about it. So number 8, Cyclona's Palo Verde.
Holy shit.
Another just solid record, right? I mean,
Yeah.
also, I'm a little partial to these guys because I've had a chance to meet them, but so good live. And I think when we talked about this record together, I think we all said that the record itself from start to finish was just really, really good. I think the only thing we were wishing it had was that one just blow it away track, like the previous record had. I mean, I think the production value and everything on this record, and I love the way Phil sings on this record. I think it's awesome.
Yeah.
It was top 5 for me, I think, this past year.
I really dig the guitar tones on this album. Really good guitar sounds, in my opinion.
Yeah, I thought this album was interesting. I got to see them at Psycho, I think maybe twice actually. And it translates so well to the stage. I would actually say perhaps even better than in studio. So I think that says a lot about Cyclona as a band and the heights that we can expect out of them.
Yeah, they're definitely a band I would love to see live. The record before this turned me into a forever fan of Cyclona, and I was super excited for this one too, knowing it was going to come out this year. It was definitely in my top 10.
And here we have another colorful album cover.
Yeah, pretty great album cover as well.
I wonder if that says something about this year versus last year, because I felt like last year there were a lot of really dark album covers, and this year there was almost like, I don't want to say a trend because it's pretty hard for that to happen so suddenly. But
I think it's a valid point. Think about the dark kind of world we were in, and a place in our society, and now we have a lot of just really, like, I think this year is a really good indication of music is like heavier and rock music is back, and this is a great, like, I know they're a stoner rock band, but I think they're a true like rock and roll like band.
Yeah.
I think you're seeing another more positive, colorful album cover after we just got done saying about Sasquatch how we don't ever see these colors anywhere, and then boom, next record has it.
Yeah.
I'd like to know how many of these albums were written during the pandemic.
Yeah. I know that some people held them for a couple years.
That would be interesting because I think a lot of these probably were.
This one definitely was. I know this one was, and I know the Sasquatches was done at the very beginning of it. They sat on that one for 3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, this album had a very uplifting vibe to it, and like along with the guitar tones, like you're saying, Chris, is really good. Like the effects on his voice stood out a lot too. Kind of took on a little journey for every song.
Yeah.
Yep. The vocals were awesome.
All right, let's move on to number 7. Foster Mother.
Oh yeah.
Ooh, hell yeah, dude.
Again, another one of my favorite album covers. Ryan T. Hancock did the painting for this one. I know that. Talked to the Foster Mother guys on a podcast. Talked about this album. I know they're Texas guys, so I'm sure half of you at least have some stuff to say about them. But another great heavy record.
Yeah, heavy but melodic.
Mm-hmm.
Real. We like to call it. We selfishly call things Texas heavy around here. But they are like very, very melodic. I love they're very unique sounding. They have a certain tone that is like this is a Foster Mother song, and they're heavy and they can write a good hook on a chorus, and that goes a long way.
It's another one of those albums, kind of like some of the other ones that we talked about, Cyclona and bands like that took like their existing sound and made it just like this more mature thing, and they kind of like expanded on it on this one, I thought. And same with Cyclona too. They took like this like riffy stoner rock and made it like this really like well-rounded album with lots of different things. They were a little bit more experimental with things. They had a little bit more drawn out songs. They had some longer ones. And same with this, where I just feel like it was, I hate to say mature, that sounds almost like cliche at this point to say about an album, but kind of, they took it a little bit further than they did in the past.
You can hear them. You can almost hear the thought process in the writing. So I agree with you that is something that they've definitely, instead of saying mature, they've just definitely grown.
Yeah.
Into the.
I think we lost you there for a second. Looks like he's frozen. Anybody else on Foster Mother?
I just everything that you guys said is like spot on. With me. Their first album was so awesome, but then to watch them mature and to be here with them in Texas and see them and dude, they are in the scene and they play like a monster around here, and they travel and they're involved, and you see that growth with them. And this album came out, and Travis and I had talked about this because I put out his first album. We had talked about this, and the first thing I told him, I said, dude, you're so beyond me, man. I said, you need to fucking move on. And he said, Paul, I appreciate that. And then that's when he went and got on Ripple, and this album came out, and I knew it was going to be a mind blower just after that first one. And watching him and talking to him personally, I knew this was, and this is a band that I will continue to watch because they're going to grow so much more.
Yeah. Well, that's well said, and good call on letting them sign with Ripple. I think Ripple is a perfect place for them, and it's going to let them kind of explore as a band and all that kind of stuff. It's cool.
Yeah. What's the next one?
You ready? Ready for number? What are we on? 6?
Are we ready?
I think we're on 6 now. Yeah.
Oh,
Haze,
dude!
Blinded by the Wicked. I don't know that much about this one, to be honest. I've listened to this one a little bit and went back and listened to it after we all voted. So I'm gonna let you guys take the reins on this one.
This one was real high. Go for it, Chris.
This album probably my top. Oh, sorry. This album is amazing and was hugely influential. Like you guys are influential on us big time. Band. In fact, the Blue Mountains on this album cover were definitely, we paid homage to those Blue Mountains on our cover. And I don't know the names of the guys in the band, but one of them reached out and said, "Oh, nice album cover." And he was being sarcastic, but I was like, just so you know, not pulling any punches here. We totally paid homage to you, or ripped it off, depending on how you want to look at it, with our Blue Mountains, because I love.
Oh, that's awesome. That's cool.
Yeah, this was one of my favorite albums of the year. I had this one really, really high. I was beyond devastated when they announced that for the foreseeable future, this is their last album.
I saw that, yeah.
I was talking to Ludwig a little bit about that, but I got to hear it because I'm friends with him and some of the other guys, and heard some of these songs early, and I was just blown away from the start. And that was before they were even fully mastered and everything. So these are, I think, some of the most talented musicians in the scene. I think they really made an impressive statement. The lyrics are dark and truly wicked and interesting. I don't have words enough to describe how much I truly enjoyed this record.
Yeah.
Rad. Well, it's a hell of a way to go out if you're this is your last record.
Yeah, I mean, you might as well go out on top.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, Blake. I think along with being killer players, I think they're amazing songwriters. They do a real unique thing, even though it sounds very Sabbath-esque or very whatever. You can hear the influences. They definitely do their own thing, and in a really kind of fresh and cool way.
Yeah. Also, the second Swedish band on the list.
Probably not the last.
I doubt it's the last. It's Sweden.
But I see a future Fuzz Club episode here, possibly.
Oh yeah, that would be a dream to do this.
Same. I'd like to do that because I need to dive into this record. It's one that
Yeah.
I just started listening to barely, just because I saw it on our list, because
Yeah.
I had not listened to it, and so I'd like to dive into it.
I think I listened to it real briefly when it came out. I just saw a lot of talk about it, and I listened to it once through, and that was about it. And then when I saw it at like number 6 or whatever, I was like, all right, and went back and listened to it a few times. But I think it probably could use a couple more, and maybe we'll have to plan a future episode here.
Sounds like a plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I got to put it out on cassette tape too, which I still got some copies of it on cassette. If people are interested.
Cool.
It's a
Paul,
badass album.
Paul, I think you're selling yourself a little short there. You had that really cool box set that this was part of, right?
Yeah, I have one left, man. Yeah, I did a real special box set of the whole Haze Maze trilogy, and that all sold out. I have one box set left, and then I got all the individual tapes, and I got this one for sale, on the store. So I know these albums very well, man. Haze Maze, I was really surprised, but very, very happy at the same time because they're so fucking good, man.
How long have they been around?
I think like 5 years.
Okay.
Yeah, they started out on Cursed Tongue, if y'all remember Cursed Tongue. And I put out their first albums with Cursed Tongue too, because I used to sell all the Cursed Tongue stuff. They were fucking bad. So I remember their very first album when it came out, man, and that thing was fucking righteous, man, from the start. And,
I do remember their debut record. Very good.
Yeah, it's fucking, their shit's bad.
Yeah, it seems like they built themselves a pretty good reputation in kind of a short amount of time. So,
I mean, they didn't put out a single bad song.
Fuck
Yeah.
no.
Like
Agreed.
they, in my opinion, they're one of the were one of the best bands in this scene. Just from top to bottom, and really cool guys too.
are there any talks of side projects or the future of any of those members or anything?
I will leave that to them to talk about.
I'm gonna take that as absolutely yes. There is. They're definitely.
I'll take that as a
Thanks
yes.
for spilling the beans there, Blake.
Yeah.
Thanks for telling everybody.
You heard it here first from Blake.
I said nothing. I just know that these guys are way too talented to give up music, and they're still pretty young.
Yeah.
I would be very surprised if Haze Maze was the last that we heard out of them.
Cool.
Hell yeah.
Right on. Anything else? All right.
On to
Then I
number
think we're at
5.
what are we at? 5? I don't remember. I can't
Halfway
count.
there.
All right.
Oh.
Valley of the Sun,
Oh.
The Chariot. This is another one of those albums that I was looking forward to all year. I'm a
Me too.
Valley of the Sun fan, and it's a great record. It's not my favorite Valley of the Sun record. I'll say that, but I thought it was great. I'm glad it's on the list.
I'm
The
the
best thing
opposite.
about
This
it-
is my favorite Valley of the Sun record.
Is it?
Yeah.
I
I-
love Chariots of the Gods. Or is that what it's called? Chariots of the Sun?
The Chariot? The Chariot?
The Chariot. Maybe I'm just making it too difficult.
Uh-huh.
That's my favorite record about that. But this record is really, really, really good.
So
And I like that you said I was
why,
waiting for
why
it
is it
for
your
a year.
favorite?
I to kind of steal your word that you applied earlier to, I can't remember, to Cycloluna, I believe it was. I just think it's their most fully developed and mature album. I think they were firing on all cylinders. I think that they were really exploring things in a different way.
Mhm.
I'm as you love to remind everyone, I'm Mr. Doom guy, but every once in a while there's a stoner rock record that comes along that I'm like, all right, now that was a fucking record. And I thought this was exemplary of kind of what I'm looking for in stoner rock.
Interesting. I'm almost a little surprised. I thought maybe this would be one of those things where you kind of dismissed. I didn't think that you might be into this one that much.
No, Pat got me into Valley of the Sun probably like a year and a half ago, something like that.
Right on.
And so it's this one and their EP, I think it was, are my two favorites by them.
Very cool.
Yeah, the guitar playing and the vocals are way too strong on this. It's very, very impressive on this record. And they're also another band that's great songwriters. They've kind of got their formula down, and they nail it just about every time.
Yeah. Another band, I've said this before on multiple podcasts, I think, but I saw them open up for Truck Fighters. And I mean, Truck Fighters are legendary, but I thought Valley of the Sun like stole that show. They were so fucking good live.
Wow.
I was super impressed.
I've seen them live, and they are phenomenal live.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Ryan, you're right that vocally, and in terms of guitar writing, like they always knock it out of the park. But like Blake said, I think they took it to another level. And there are some like nice homages to people that have come before. Like there's some really cool like Jimi Hendrix licks in there. I heard like a little bit of like Audio Slave into certain points as well. So there are like a few nods to people that have come before, but it's still very distinctly Valley of the Sun.
I mean, it's a professional record. It's a professional band and a professional record. It's fully realized.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So see, I do like things that aren't Doom.
Sometimes I'm surprised by what those things are, but yeah. sometimes.
Blake loves stoner rock. He loves it.
All right. Anything else on this one?
Another good rip artist, by the way.
Yeah. The one and only Oct,
Hey.
Heavy
Who are
on
these
Cosmic.
guys?
How did this thing end up?
It is very cool to have you on the podcast regularly and for all of us to just talk about how much we love this record. And it really is. It was on my list. I know it's on most of the other people's list here. So it's cool to have you here and cool to be able to talk about this record. It's great.
I'm equally as honored to be on here, man. Like I love you guys, and this is such an awesome thing to be. So much for having me. And Zach.
So who's gonna say something? Who's gonna say something bad while they're sitting here?
This guy sucks.
No, this is amazing. Like this is a dream come true, man. Like being connected with people all around the world that have similar interests. Like I wish you guys could all live in the same subdivision as me, or like vice versa. It would be so cool. I love the fact that. Yeah, I love the fact that like there's this kind of music permeates the entire earth.
What's very cool to see with this record coming out and now getting to know you and Randy a little bit more and stuff like that is that while you're still a small band and this is your first record and it's hard to get out there in front of people, every single day I see more people talking about this record. Every single day. So the fact that it came in at like number 4 here, like is just a testament to how many people maybe have not even heard it yet, because every day I see more and more people talking about this record, which is very cool.
Yeah, and it's I keep seeing more top 10 lists that feature it.
Yeah.
So
Same. I'm seeing it everywhere now.
Yep.
Yeah. It's a huge honor and a really weird feeling. I know like people that have put out albums that get some recognition. Like it's an odd feeling, and it's a bit of like you have a bit of imposter syndrome, right? So it's real, or are people just blowing smoke up my ass, or what? But yeah, it's a cool feeling to finally, I don't know if everyone knows how old I am, but I've been doing this for a long time and finally decided to put out my own original music. It just feels like a dream come true and like something I never thought would happen. So the fact that I finally have a bit of a thing is just great. And I hope it never stops, but if it all ended tomorrow, I'd be happy with what's happened so far. So yeah.
Well, for me, like it's an album that does have a lot of different things to like about it. And I've kind of said this previously about different albums, but like I'm not always super into the like really heavy, low and slow stuff. And for this record that touches on so many different things, I loved it. And I think that maybe that's why a lot of people enjoyed it so much, is that there's a little bit of something for everybody. But does anyone else have any thoughts on why this record hit number 4 and why it's so great for everybody?
I think you nailed it. I think it's because it has several different elements, cross genres, and it's all done well. So I think you should be very proud of this record because it's a solid record.
Thank you very much. This guy right here had a huge part of it, so he
well done.
He really brought it to fruition.
It was definitely really fun to work on, just because like every song felt like a different subgenre in the doom category itself. So it was fun to pick into that stuff.
Yeah, I've pretty severe ADHD, so that's probably why the songs change so much in our stuff.
Use it, right? That's awesome.
I really want to carry a bunch of copies of this on the Cosmic Peddler.
Oh yeah, I think
Yeah,
Ryan
man.
maybe
We were talking about that. This album, man, I was jamming it all week in the store, man. It's so good, man. Just to reiterate what everyone said, that they hit the nail on the head, man.
So like Ryan from Slightly Fuzz said, like, we are a small kind of operation at this point, so we only pressed 100 records. So I think if and when we do a second pressing, we'll probably look at more distribution. But at this point, we're getting low on volume, to be honest. So we want to hang on to a few. We're like in
all right,
something to sell, but
well, I'm gonna buy one from you later tonight, then, just so I get my hands on a copy for myself.
Yeah, I think I lucked out in that I heard which song was it that Rob Hammer posted? Do you remember? I can't.
I thought you did the whole album.
Yeah, Rob Hammer did do the whole. He first put out. I can't remember.
A single. I can't remember, but I remember
Space City. Space City.
I was laying in bed and I stumbled onto that through the first single. I think it was the first single, and I was amazed. And I remember reaching out, and then Chris and I started talking, and he was like, "Well, you want to hear the album?" And I was like, "Yes." And so I listened to it on repeat for probably about 3 weeks, and I kept telling people, I was like, wait till you hear this band called Ox. Wait till you hear this band called Ox. They're gonna fucking blow your mind. And everyone that I know that's listened to this album has loved it, and I think that's for very good reason.
Absolutely, yeah. It was Electric Traveler for me was the first one that I had heard, and it's kind of like a high energy, like more like upbeat one, and it roped me in for sure, and I enjoyed everything else as well.
Yeah, I'm a real child of the 90s, so I like that loud, quiet, fast, slow contrast thing. So that's where Electric Traveler is kind of like an homage to that, like contrast, because it has the Chug and Sabbath like verses, and then the doomy Electric Wizardy kind of choruses,
Yeah. So I think that maybe we talked about this last podcast or a couple ago or something like that. Are we going to expect to see you on the list again next year, or is it going to be a little longer than
that? Yeah, we're working on something right now. So maybe not a full album next year, but we will. We have a half of an album written. We're just going to take our time and not rush it. So
very cool.
We'll see what happens, but something will be coming out.
Hey, are you already in the process of repressing that?
We are talking about it. It's kind of like life's been so crazy with all of this stuff, and with Christmas, new job. So it's definitely on the back burner. Like we have talked about it. It'll come up soon. I know there's a backlog with record pressing up here. I think it's less than it was when we first pressed this record, but we definitely will be looking at doing a second pressing at some point.
Yeah, I'd be interested in helping you do a pressing right here, and I have a place to press it here in Texas.
Oh, really? Okay, so maybe we'll set up a.
Yeah, let's talk about it later.
Black Throne and us, and
I'd be interested in it.
Mm-hmm.
Wicked.
That's cool.
Hell yeah.
Wicked, man.
Ryan must be turning down the road.
Oh yeah. I'm pulling in the house. Sorry if you heard I got these blinkers, guys.
I don't want to and bail as soon as my album gets talked about, but we've been giving her all day, and we have like some vocals to do, and then we're gonna call her a night. So,
well, thanks for sticking around to talk about it a little bit with us. That's awesome, and congratulations.
I
Go
can't
lay
even
down some magic, guys.
how appreciative I am of all of this. So thank you so much, man.
Hell yeah.
Right on. Thanks, guys.
Congrats, guys.
Talk to you guys soon, eh?
Later. All right, that brings us to number 3. Rickshaw, Billy's Burger Patrol, and Doomwop. Another album that we talked about on the Fuzz Club, and made it to number 3, which is cool.
We should have had him on the show, man. I wish I would have known, Ryan, man. We should have brought him on, dude.
Well, after I shit on their album artwork, I didn't know how receptive they would be to joining us, but
That was one of my favorite episodes.
that was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
That was a lot of fun.
Mine too. And I talked to Leo. They were like, they actually loved that we dumped on the album cover.
Oh, that's cool.
They loved it. Well, I think I told y'all that it's because when the pressing comes out, it's supposed to be a metallic, like reflective silver, right?
Sure.
And the name wasn't even supposed to be on it, but they had to do it for Spotify reasons and all that. So
Sure.
that's why it is what it is.
That was a very fun
Yeah, but they're
episode.
good.
It's a very fun record. I'm glad we could have some fun with it
Yeah.
because it's a very, very fun record.
This is
It's cool
Yeah.
to see him this high on the list, even because it's an interesting one.
And it's making a lot of waves. This record is, people definitely know, they realize that Rickshaw Billy's Burger Patrol may not be, it's a crazy name, but it's not a joke band, because this album, I'm seeing this album get a lot of really good press. And I saw that they got personally asked by the guy who puts what's the festival in Tennessee that just got put on? I'll have to look it up here in a second.
Muddy Roots.
Was it the Muddy Roots? I can't remember if it was the Muddy Roots or the one, but they personally got asked by the guy who puts the fest on, like, to play it, which is really cool.
Awesome.
So they're doing some good stuff.
So what makes this record come in at number 3? Because to me, like, as much as I love it, and it was on my list and I love it, but I was surprised by how high it really made it on the list. Does anyone have any thoughts on why it made it on everybody's list and as high as number 3?
I was really surprised to see it this high. It didn't make my list. I'm absolutely thrilled to see it this high on this because it's such a fun record. Yeah. And I'm just so happy that an album this fun comes in at number 3 on our list.
Yeah, I mean it's well, this record is infectious. Like it's hard to you don't just listen to this thing one time. You listen to it over and over again, and you kind of listen to the same tracks over and over again because you're like, did he really say what I think he said? And so there's a lot of that on this record. I feel like, so I end up going back and listening to the same things over and over again. And they're just fun. Like this live, they're hilarious. They're super high energy. The record reflects that. And like, I know that they're the kind of guys that you have a hard time like trying to take a dump on because they actually encourage it. They love it. I mean, just so you know, the record, the pressing of their last record, they were actually really upset about because it came out like orange. It was supposed to be, and I'm not making this up, it was supposed to be, the color they asked for was the mixture of cum and shit.
No way.
They wanted a shit. I don't remember which one it was. If it was a shit colored with cum splatter or the other way around, I don't know.
All right, now we got to get him on. We got to get him on the podcast now.
Yeah, I'm telling you, man, this is 100% Ryan's type of band right here. Yeah.
Yeah, they're cool. Good. Yeah, they are such cool dudes, man.
Yeah, awesome dudes. Hilarious too.
They're all over here,
Clearly.
man. Everybody around Texas loves these guys, man. They play all over around here. All the bands know them. They're fucking badass.
That's cool.
Yeah,
that's cool. All right, are we ready for the top 2?
There we go.
Another album that we did an episode on. The very first episode we did. Cave-In's Heavy Pendulum. Number 2.
This was my number 1.
Mine as well.
This album is phenomenal.
There, I will point out for this album and the number one, there was a huge gap in scoring between number 8 and number 9, and then even number 9 to number 10. But we can talk about that on the next one.
Yeah.
And this is another record that I have to give you guys credit on. This one would have probably either I would have found it late, or could have flown under the radar for me.
Same.
But I did it for that episode, and I was thoroughly impressed with good reason. It's an incredibly well done record from top to bottom.
I thought that it was like another like metal hardcore something album, and I didn't even think about looking into it. But I was talking to the guy at our local record shop here in Rockford, Culture Shock, and he was like, "You should check out this record. I think you would like it. Check it out." And he put on a couple of tracks, and I was like, "I'm gonna go home and I'm gonna listen to this record immediately." And it was my number one at the end of the year. It was my number one.
Wow.
Yeah, the songwriting is just phenomenal. You can tell like they really put a lot of thought in the long process and then finishing off each song. It's like every song just hits you in the face, and they even have some slow ones there too that can mail you out, but then it kicks that back right up again.
Yeah, true. Right, truly an album that kind of takes you on a journey, which that's what an album's supposed to do. I don't like to put a record on just for a song. And this is like, it's got highs and lows with tempos and moods it creates. Just a truly solid record for sure.
Yeah.
If I remember right, this is one of those albums that was written during the pandemic, and it's fucking deep, man. It's deep.
It sounded like they just kept writing during the pandemic. Maybe they had an album done and they just kept going and going and going afterwards and decided to put out this like massive album.
Yeah, this is a long. What is this, like 14 songs?
Yeah, something like that. I remember it being pretty long.
By today's standards, that's 2 records.
Yeah. Yeah, they could have easily made it 2 records, I think.
Yeah.
And also another crazy, awesome album artwork here.
Yep.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah.
I think we mentioned who did it in the episode that we did, but I don't remember it off the top of my head. But yeah, great artwork.
Yeah, it's awesome.
What's interesting about them is that I don't think their other music sounds much like this record, so it'll be interesting to see what they do in the future. I think.
I agree. I when I was so impressed with this record, I went back and listened to other stuff. It's good, but it's not this.
It's not this.
It's not this. It's not as polished, or I'm not going to use the word mature. It's been used way too much today.
Yeah. It's a very mature album.
Yeah, it showed a lot of growth.
It really did show a lot of growth, though. If we're being honest, it did show a lot of growth.
Oh, absolutely. But yeah,
I think I showed a lot of growth while I was listening to it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, hey-o, zing.
There it is. I
think in your case it might be a little bit of growth, but
all right.
Yeah. There was some movement there. That's all that happens. Okay. Some blood flow to some places that hadn't in a while.
There was twitch.
Yeah.
Felt it move. That's all.
Yeah.
All right. Who's ready for number 1? There should be no surprise at what is number 1 if you've been following along, I think.
Because it is the best album of the year.
Devil's Witches, number 1.
It was so good.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah. In all her forms.
I think this is a true achievement in Doom. There are some records in Doom that when you think of the genre, well, subgenre, whatever, you immediately think of them. You think of albums by Electric Wizard, for example, and stuff like that. I think in a few years we're going to think about this album, as one of the things that was one of the most important albums in this genre. I think that it's adventurous. It's a journey. It's a concept album, which I'm always going to love. This album changed my year musically.
And it's all basically done by one person, which just makes it even more insane. I mean, how do you have the best album of the year as just one guy coming up with it in your head? That's wild for me.
Yeah. I I find this album to be very it pisses me off and inspires me at the same time, because I wish I'd written it.
Yeah.
That's a good place to be creatively. If you're in a band, that's a good place to be. Pissed off and inspired. That'll
Yeah,
great.
I heard this album and I immediately was like, fuck, I gotta step it up.
Yeah.
It's nice that like to like this being a concept album, it's also like very timely, and I think but it's also timeless because it's all about, you know, female rights and sexual freedom, and he's touched on that in his earlier work, but I don't know if he's gone to this depth and this level of storytelling, and it's just a heartbreaking, beautiful album.
And I think that that's probably lost on a lot of people, because it was hard for me to kind of decipher the lyrics listening to it until you kind of broke it down for us on the episode that we did with them. But I wonder how many people really truly get like what a masterpiece this album is, you know?
I hope they'll feel it, because like one of my first couple of listens, I felt something profound was happening. Mm-hmm. And then when I started reading is when things started to click. I don't know if that was like it for you, Blake. It sounds like that was sort of similar for you, where you understood something was happening.
This is probably my album of the decade so far. I know we're only 2 years into the 3 years into the decade, depending on how
statement.
But
statement.
Out of the last 2-3 years, I think this is the best album that has come out.
Why do you say that? What is it about this that makes it like an album of the decade? There's some catchiness to it. There's some slower stuff on it. There's some heavy stuff on it. There's some weird stuff happening. But like at the end of the day, like what makes it an album of the decade to you?
Okay, so I'll get controversial for you.
Mm-hmm.
I think that I think that there are a lot of bands making doom, but there are few bands in the straight up doom space that are thinking outside the box. My top 2 albums of the year on my personal list were both albums that I thought were transcending the genre itself. I had this one as my number 1 album of the year. It wasn't even a question for me. And I think that this album has a chance to revitalize doom, prevent it from getting played out, and really give other bands a template to say, look, you don't just have to sound like Monolord. You can create a song like Magic Mama, and it's just a wonderful, delightful song. And it's different than the rest of the album, but it still makes sense in terms of the concept. I think that artistically, this is also just one of the true, just best. I mean, the vinyl package is probably one of the coolest things I own in my collection. I've got like 500 records. I don't have words to describe how much this album impresses me, amazes me, inspires me, terrifies me in a way, because when I listen to this album, I hear a new horizon for doom. Not to be all profound and but I truly do, you know, I loved a lot of the albums that we've talked about on this episode. But this one, it just defies words for me.
Well said. Yeah, well said.
It wasn't as controversial as I was hoping, but okay.
I mean, he said possibly the album of the decade.
Yeah, but it's 2022. So I need something bolder than that.
I mean, I also said that doom is played out, and I make doom. So
yeah, and I mean, well, we've already established that Stoner Rock is number 1 for you now after this episode,
yeah,
so we're good. So we're good. But another album here that I owe a big credit to you guys, because I would not have dived into this or like really got into this record as much as I would have had we not done that episode.
Yeah.
I'm still like, this one hasn't grabbed me as much as maybe some of you guys. But I respect y'all's musical opinion so much. I'm gonna dive deeper into it some more, because there were times, and I think it's, really when I think about it, it's a credit to the record. But I'd have it on, and then a song would come on. I'm like, is this still the same record? Because it's very unique.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, is this still oh wow, it is. Okay, well, I guess I'd caught myself not paying attention or something. So I definitely need to dive, for lack of a better word, back into it. But it didn't grab me like some of the other ones, but because you guys are obviously so high, I don't think this even was on my list, and this is the number one record on our list. So I will definitely have to give it some more listening.
Yeah, I mean, I would tend to agree with you for the most part. I mean, when this came out, I saw so many people talking about it. I'm like, well, now I have to listen to it, because it's clearly making an impact on so many people that I have to at least check it out. And I thought it was an interesting album. I thought it was like kind of an artsy album and stuff like that. But I didn't, it didn't knock me out. It's an album that I think I'm gonna have to listen to constantly and for a long time to fully appreciate it as much as some other people do. But I understand why people enjoy it as much as they do.
And I'm excited to go back and listen to it, because I mean, some of my favorite records of all time did not grab me at first. So
sure, yeah.
Who's to say? This could be another one of those. Who knows?
But it also said something about it that it made it to number one easily, when it wasn't even on the list for some people.
Yeah, it was on my list.
It outranked second place by 20% more points. So It was a huge gap.
And the fact that it wasn't even on some people's list, I mean, that just shows how much it made an impact on those people that voted for it.
It had to be a number one on a lot of our lists then.
Yeah. Yep.
I think it's one of those albums that if especially if Doom is important to you, this album is going to be important to you.
Uh-huh.
Like it could really make waves in terms of what we see musically from Doom artists going forward, in my opinion.
I ditto a lot of what Ryan is saying, but now delving into this album over the past few weeks, I've delved into it more. I can definitely see what Blake is saying, and as I get more into it, it really grabs me more and more about how good it is.
So the fellow musicians on this podcast, let me ask you a question about like the technical aspect of this album, because there are certain albums on this list that I go like, that's just impressive. They're doing impressive things. They're writing impressive music. There's the guitar work. There's this or that. This album seems more like it was on people's list because of the concept or the direction it took in Doom, more than like the technical playing.
Oh no, it's a very impressive on a technical level album, especially the guitar work. I felt like he was doing some things with tone here that were truly fascinating. He was playing, and as Tony Iommi used to describe Black Sabbath albums, he was playing with light and shade, because there are some albums that are completely devoid of all distortion, and they're just gorgeous pieces. There's, Magic Mama sounds like a T-Rex song. But the assemblage together shows not just an attention to detail on a conceptual level, but an attention to detail on a note by note level. I think that this is for me at least, and no one has to agree with me on this. I think this is a perfect record.
Yeah, I found like the guitar parts and the bass stuff like wasn't like super technical, but they did have that like like a raw, simplistic feel to it, but you can tell like it was really thought out, and there's a lot went into it in each song.
Yeah. He's clearly a very talented musician,
Yeah.
but compared to some of the other bands on here where you just go like, Jesus, that guitar playing, or Jesus, that drumming, or whatever, like I didn't get that vibe from this. Is that
I don't think that's what he's going for, though.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
You
That's
know?
kind of my point. That's kind of my point, is that like that's not the focus of the album. Like the focus is more the overall feeling, the overall like vibe, the concept or whatever is more of like the thing you're supposed to look at.
Yeah, I would say I've talked to him a couple of times, and based off of the vibe that I've gotten from him, he doesn't really care about being labeled as a great guitarist or you know, anything like that. I think he cares more about being seen as a great songwriter.
And I think that landing on this, well, you know, lots of lists as number one, not just this one, but lots of lists as number one, is like a true testament to that. Because like if you're not blowing people's minds with your solos or your drumming or something, like, I mean, good God, your concept must be insane. You know, like
it's kind of refreshing though in a sense, because I mean, let's be honest, this is a both stoner doom. It's a guitar heavy, you know, genre, and there's enough guys that can jack off on the guitar all day long, you know, and sometimes that just gets outdone. I mean, we'll all be like, man, that was a really badass lead, but you know, is it musical? And you know, like I said, I'm going to go back and dive into this, but I could already tell it was very musical, and I did not know it was one person.
Yeah,
and I'm interested to go back and listen that he's really sounds like he's really into the sum of all the parts, right? What the finished product sounds like.
I think it also says something about this stoner rock doom scene too, that everyone saw this album and they were like, hell yeah. Whereas it's not like heavy metal where they're like, it didn't have the solos like their last album did. You know, like for people to really truly appreciate this as like a piece of art or whatever, like I think it says something about the people that are listening to music also, which is pretty cool.
Well, it's made for contemplation, and I think that's another cool feature of it. Like you're supposed to sit down with your, you know, accompaniment of choice, you know, glass of whiskey or something like that, and just really fall into this album. Like literally as we're talking about it, all I can think about is how after we're done recording, I've got to switch my record player over to 45 RPM so that I can put this on. I gave this album a little bit of space because I played it to death for about a month straight, and I think it's time that I dive back into it.
Well, we are almost to an hour, and there's still a few more things that we need to talk about. So is everybody ready to move on from this album?
Let's do it.
Congratulations to Devil's Witches on Album of the Year. The first thing I wanted to ask is how everyone felt about the year as a whole, because as controversial as it may be, and I've seen other people say this was an amazing year for music, and they felt like it was so hard to find their top 10. I felt like last year it was harder for me to pick my top 10 because there were so many good records. This year, it was harder to find my top 10 because the records that I thought were going to be like number 20 ended up like at number 5 for me. So for me, I don't know. I thought last year was a little bit stronger.
So you can go, guys, go first.
What I think happened with this year as opposed to last year or the year before that is that in the preceding 2 years, we had a lot of fucking spectacular debut albums. And this year was, can you follow it up? And so for me, at least, this year was very top heavy. I think in my top 10, most of them were second albums. And so
a lot of maturity, a lot of growth.
Yeah. It's people showing like what they learned and that they can deliver more than one album. Like a musician buddy of mine he told me this one thing as I was working on my second album, and he was like, every musician's first album is the album they've been writing, whether they knew it or not, their entire fucking life.
Right.
Their second album is the album they've been writing for 6 months.
Yeah.
Now, what can you do as a songwriter and as a musician to top what you've been writing your entire life?
Yeah.
So that's why I think this year was a little, for me, I would agree with you, Ryan. This year was not, in my opinion, quite as good as last year in terms of just last year. I didn't even have a top 10 because I was like, I give up. I would have had to do a top 100.
There was so many albums last year that I was just like, oh, this is going to be on my top 10 for sure. Right. And then at the end of the year, it was hard to like whittle that down to a real true 10. Whereas this year, I was like, well, dude, like Valley of the Sun's coming out with a record, Cycloluna's coming out with a record. And then when I heard those records, I was like, I don't know if they're better than their last album or not. Like, they're good, they're close. I don't know if it's better or worse. And I was like, I guess they go in my top 10. And that's not to say anything against like the bands that I put in my top 10. They were great records. But I just felt like last year I was like, damn, I'd really, maybe I should do like a top 20.
Yeah. For me, I think there was a lot of music that was sparked because of the pandemic and started being written at the beginning during shutdown, and then that trickled out progressively in 2020 and then 2021. And so I think there was just a huge volume of great music that happened because nothing else could happen. But I for me, like I was thinking about this the other day because I did the top 10 list for Monster Riff, and what I do at the end of every year is just take like all of the 9 out of 10s and 10 out of 10s from the album reviews of the year, and that's what just makes it into the final list. And I found that even though I look more fondly on the albums that came out last year, I was more generous this year. I think there were like 4 albums that were 10 out of 10. Last year there was only 2, and but I still feel like last year was better. And I think part of that is this year I know I've been exposed to so much more music by volume, especially like writing with the Doom charts.
Yeah,
I'll listen to like 10 albums a day, and it like a lot of it isn't great, Yeah. And so I think like relatively speaking, like I hear so much more, and there's so much less cream rising to the top, relatively speaking. So for like me, it's been sort of a weird year for music.
Sure, and I can definitely agree with that sentiment too. Like, especially since I've joined the Doom charts and listening to so much music, and I thought I listened to a lot of music last year. I really did. I mean, I thought I was like really listening to a lot of stuff, and now just going like, holy shit, man! Like after you listen to like 30 albums in 30 days, you go, I don't know what's good anymore.
Well, they really have to stand out, right? They really have to stand out.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's tough because 2021 will always be a special year for me musically. Because I mean we released our record, but I feel like I discovered more bands last year that I had just never heard of before. Than ever before. This year, I feel like the veterans came out with their record. Like the veterans that had been sitting on it for a while. Like they kind of came out with all their records, and like Blake alluded to, a lot of second records, or a lot of even more than that. But it's funny. I think the pure creativity of last year's music, I hold in higher regard. I think this year there's just a lot of really good records. And I had a hard time, like even I think I almost struck some controversy on our texting thread when I was like, whoa, I need to change some of my top 10. And we're like, whoa, we've already done the math. I'm like, okay. I don't want to screw anything up, because there was for me this year, there's a lot of late arrivals, some albums that just came out like very recently that have really, really hit me. So, I mean, there's still been a lot of really good music. I have a hard time saying which year was better, but I know that when I looked back before this episode at my list of last year, oh yeah, there's some ones that I would still be like, yep, they would be in my top 10 this year too if it had come out. So
yeah.
And I don't know if some of the ones like you, Ryan, on my list this year are out of pure reputation alone, and love that I have for the band's body of work.
Yeah, and that's the thing is that like I don't have anything against the albums that Sasquatch, Cycloluna, any of these Valley of the Sun put out, but it's like I wanted those albums to be so amazing anyway because I was already anticipating them. That when they came out, I was like, oh, they're good, and then I felt like torn about like, well, did they make it? Did they not? And I don't know. Not that you have to compare 21 to 22. That's totally unnecessary. But
you just made us, man. You just made us. That's
but I
on
was
you.
curious how everyone felt about the year as a whole, and I thought 21 was a really great year for music. I'll say that.
I think that rock and roll is alive and well, though. At least I think there's still a lot of really good heavy records being made, which is definitely nice to see.
So now that we've established that 21 was possibly better than 22, we can do like a maybe a lightning round of maybe some honorable mentions. I know that there was a few albums that were very close to the top 10 and didn't quite make it. The first being King Buffalo's Regenerator. That was definitely up there.
Very good record.
Yeah.
That was on my list. I really
a lot of
enjoyed
people
that record a lot.
I've seen a lot of people talk about it. They also put a lot of albums out. So how does everyone feel about it compared to some of other King Buffalo's?
It's my favorite.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think out of the last, they put 3 albums like in a year's time.
Yeah, the Pandemic trilogy.
Yeah, I think it's the best of the 3 as an album. There may be some songs like on that record in the Cave that just blow my mind, but I think record-wise, it was the best of the 3.
Ian Blurton's Future Now.
Hey,
Second Skin.
So for me, Frail, Skin and Sorrow, man. I love Frail. Their first album fucking blew me away, and this one was just as good. And they're such a phenomenal band, to me. And I don't hear a lot of people mention them, but to me, they're on another level. Almost every song that they do, they have videos, and their music is it's phenomenal. So I see them all over. They're playing in Europe. They're touring in Europe. They're touring in the U.S. They're doing all these things, and that album was definitely in my top 10, and I think that's a very underrated band, for me.
Yeah, I've heard some things about them. I see people post about them every now and then, but I didn't see them at the top of a lot of lists. But they seem to be starting to kind of grow their audience a little bit.
I think so. They're growing. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're badass.
Great band.
Mm-hmm.
So the Ian Blurton album, Second Skin, I saw a lot of people talking about that. It almost made our list. I think it came in at like number 12.
Yeah, that was my second pick for the album of the year.
Interesting album. A little bit more like proggy, something like a little bit kind of out of like kind of the norm of what we've been talking about, but great stuff.
A very Eddie record for sure, but it's and that's a compliment because I dig this record a lot. Like I was late to the party on this one, and I would have added it to my list probably if I was allowed to make changes.
Well, to that point, Eddie, yeah, you are the person that introduced me to Ian Blurton, and he turned out a great album this year. So, the Odolith needs a mention. I know Blake was biting at chomping at the bit to talk about the
solid
Odolith
record.
at some point.
That was my second album of the year. I still listen to it probably once a week. I used to listen to it about once a day for about a month straight. I can't get enough of that record. If
very
you
good
haven't
record.
listened to the Odolith, like holy fucking shit.
Blake did a great album review for Monster Riff on that, and that is another one of those albums where I was so thankful I was peer pressured into actually giving it a solid listen, because it's not an album that you can just like pick up a song and then be done with it. You have to listen to the full album, and I initially heard it in preparation for the Doom charts, and I was like, I don't really like this, and then it topped the Doom charts, and I was like, what the hell just happened? Like, what did I miss? And then I sat down and I was like, oh my God, this is incredible.
Yeah. That's another album just like Devil's Witches that I know a lot of people did not put it on their list at all. And it still made to number 1 on the Doom charts. So like the people that listened to it it was number one. The people that didn't. You know, like if you heard it, you put it at number one almost. Like it must have made that strong of an impact to the people that really listened to it.
Yeah, my top three were kind of set in stone for quite a while, and then it was filling out the rest. You know, but having the Odolith was, I thought it was an awe-inspiring album.
What was your third, Blake?
Ox.
Oh. I had.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was. You go ahead. You're on a roll.
No, I was gonna keep moving, but
I had two. Well, I had one album that I wanted to call out, and then I have a sleeper for everyone to check out.
Go for it. Yeah, go for it.
The Sergeant Thunderhoof, the Sceptered Veil, was maybe my favorite album of the year overall. And then the sleeper is Simon's Montaña Roja, out of, I believe they're Colombian, but people sleep on South America. A lot of attention goes to like US and Europe, but there's some really cool stuff coming out of there.
Yeah, you told me about that Simon record.
I went nuts over it.
It was great. It really is great.
What's that
I had that on my list here of honorable mentions. It's a
Simon, and then the album title is like, I think it's 2, so it's like Roman numeral dot Montaña Roja.
I would love to see how you spelled that, Paul.
I'm gonna try, brother.
I'll send you a link to it, Paul, because I always have trouble finding it.
All right, cool, man. I want to check
it's
it
cool.
out.
It's a cool record. What was it about Sergeant Thunderhoof that you enjoyed so much?
That's a great band.
I already liked Sergeant Thunderhoof before. I thought they had some really cool ideas previously, and I just felt like they tied everything together so well in one album. I feel like they just figured out who they were all at once and just crushed it, song after song after song after song. There's no lulls, there's nothing worth skipping. Everything's very emotive and heavy and just really tight.
I saw a big push for that record when it came out. A lot of people talking about it, and then it seemed like maybe people forgot about it. Did it come out early this year or something? I don't know. I didn't see a lot of talk about it now, but when it came out, people were like super excited about it.
That's interesting because I'm actually seeing more chatter now. I think towards like I'm seeing it on more lists. And a lot more chatter about it.
Good.
They're from the UK, so so the records are kind of pricey coming out of the UK, and that's a big factor. So I've been trying to help them and sell some here, but they're one of the more expensive albums. They're one of the more expensive ones because they're coming out of the UK. I don't know if that has any impact on that.
One of the other albums that, Pat, I know you enjoyed was Silent Monolith's Empty Kingdom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That was a solid record. I felt like, kind of an up-and-coming band, smaller band, early record for them, I think. They haven't been around too long.
They're a really interesting case because they've been around for like maybe 8 years, but their frontman has just gotten the shaft. He had a spat of really bad luck and has injuries that have been really long term to both of his feet, and it's made it really hard, one, to just get around in life, and then two, to perform anything without like sitting in a chair during performances and stuff. So they were on sort of like a really long hiatus. They had a really good debut. I don't know if it was a full album. But it was definitely an EP. I think it would have been like 6 songs. That was really solid. And then they were working. And what was really interesting, if you look at the credits for this album, there are like 15 artists on it because they would write a song, they would record it together, then the band would shift, and then they'd have like a new crew and they'd record a song, and then the crew would shift again. Okay. So there's a story with it's an album with a lot of history behind it, and just there's a lot of stuff that you don't see that's happening in the background. So it is great. I'm really happy for them to finally get it out.
Tell me the name of that band again.
Silent Monolith.
Silent Monolith.
Yeah, and the album is Empty Kingdom.
2 records that I didn't really get into much, but I know that a lot of people did. Conan album, Evidence of Immortality, and the
Great album.
Mephistopheles album. I think it came in pretty high on our list, 12, 13, something around there. I don't know what it was. So anyone that knows more about these two things than I do, Mephistopheles and Conan, anyone want to comment on those two albums this year?
I'd love to comment on Conan's album.
Okay.
And I know Eddie would too.
Yeah.
I thought it was bludgeoningly heavy and beautiful at the same time. Like it's exactly what I was hoping Conan was going to do. You know, they're one of my favorite bands in the scene. The album almost cracked my top 10. It was one of my real hard final cuts. But fuck, you know, that's a band that, in my opinion, in some ways is just getting better over time.
Yeah, I got the chance to see them live for the first time when they came through Edmonton here, and just blew my mind. Like just the intensity and the volume, just like pushing the sound right through your body was crazy. And we got to meet the band after and got the photos taken on stage. They're just a bunch of great guys.
Cool.
Yeah, the album's wicked.
They are great guys. I got to listen to that record. I haven't listened to it yet. We had a chance to play with them in the UK last year or this past year, and now I'm curious if like I would recognize, you know, some of the new stuff off the record, because holy shit, they crush live.
Yeah.
Like there is loud and heavy, and then there's Conan. It's freaking, it's huge.
Caveman Battle Doom.
Yeah, they are so heavy.
So when I published the Monster Riff Top 10 article and I pushed it out on Instagram, like whenever I publish something like that, I expect to get some sort of slapback, like complaints and why didn't this make it? Why didn't that make it? And I usually like hope to get like a few like, oh, thanks for including this. Oh, great list, that kind of stuff first. Very first thing I saw within 15 minutes of posting it was no evidence of immortality, not valid.
Yes, our list isn't valid.
Yeah, there was one album that I wanted to spotlight just super quick, if I can, Ryan, if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was my number 4 album. I think the album title was close, but Mesa, their latest album.
It's good.
Like I know there's starting to be kind of a theme in the ones that I liked this year, but I thought that they were doing something really interesting. I mean, fuck, I never expected to hear jazz and folk instruments in a Doom record. So that one's definitely worth checking out.
Cool.
And one band I'll shout out real quick, because the album came out late, and it was the album I go, hey, I got a new number 1. Like I was gonna dethrone everybody and move everybody down.
Yeah.
But we didn't, and that was Galpa, their most recent record out of Sweden. And then it just so happens I get a chance to play with them a few weeks ago in Sweden. And I when I first heard the record, I'll be honest, I go, man, that's a really good record. Man, she sounds so much like Bjork. It's kind of distracting because she sounds so much like Bjork, which is a good thing in my opinion. But Bjork is so iconic that can be a downfall. But her screams like live and stuff I've never heard anything like it. So they are probably like one of my new favorite bands right now. I started paying attention to the album, and it wasn't just her voice, but the dynamics that the band shows, how they can take it down like old school blues players, take it down and build it up and stuff. It was really, really good. So I highly recommend checking that record out.
Cool.
Hey, you know, a record that we haven't talked about a lot, and we might want to look at maybe bringing it on the Fuzz Club, is Warlung's new record, Vulture's Paradise.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good record.
They're
starting to. It also came out kind of late.
Houston, man. They're a bunch of good guys from Houston. They play a lot around here, and their music is always elevating. Man, it's so good.
Yeah,
I have to dive more into that one, but that could maybe be a topic for a future podcast.
Yeah, I did. I think it was a Real or Fuzzed or something with them, and
yeah, it was hilarious. That one got me. That one was good. That episode was good.
I have to check it out
because it was the No, it was the segment you did.
It was the shitting, fucking, playing,
riffing,
right?
riffing, yeah, shitting or fucking. That's hilarious. That's a great segment.
Yeah.
I watched it several times. I was laughing hard at that. That was awesome.
Yeah.
Because
They were
that
good
was
sports.
hard.
Yeah. They were good sports about it,
hard.
and
Yeah.
they're a little bit more like heavy metal or something, right? I mean, it's not like doom or stoner necessarily, and they play a little bit
kind
more
of
like
a
metal
70s
stuff, but
70s metal.
Yeah.
I mean, they're a heavy psych band. They sound like a very heavy,
proto
heavy
metal.
psych.
Yeah.
Band, yeah. There you go, proto metal.
Cool stuff. Yeah, for sure. Bard Vader, Foolish Fires. I know that's an album that like Luke and I had talked a couple times about. He's been on the podcast a few times, but that was a good album. I feel like another album that kind of showed their growth a little bit. They expanded.
Very mature album.
Yeah, they had some longer songs, kind of went some different directions. I thought it was good, worth mentioning a little bit, but.
A lot of good blood flow in certain areas on that record.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I had a lot of blood flow this year when it came to Stoner Rock. So.
Awesome, man. See, music does it for you. I love it.
What was that called again? Luke Skywalker?
I said this podcast is sponsored by Blue Chew.
No, what was that record you were talking about? I'm going to write it down so I can listen to it.
Oh, the band is called Bard Vader, Foolish Fires.
Oh, Bard Vader.
Yeah.
Foolish Fighters.
Fires.
Yep. All right. I'm writing all this shit down, man. Got my homework, man. I want to hear this stuff, man.
Yeah.
It must be pretty good if it's coming from you guys, because y'all a good bunch of dudes.
Well, I hope that everyone listening to this podcast episode writes a bunch of shit down too and goes and checks it out, because
fuck yeah.
I mean, that's what's so great about the Fuzz Club to me, is that there's a lot of people coming from different angles, different backgrounds, different interests, and we all come together and talk about some of these albums. We voted on them. It was very democratic. We came up with a good top 10. I think that people will like it, and the honorable mentions were all great. So that's all I got to say. Thanks everybody for being a part of the Fuzz Club, listening to the Fuzz Club. I hope you check out these records. The bands this year have been great. Anybody else want to go and tell us what you're up to, Ryan? You want to kick us off, and we'll wrap this thing up a little bit.
The year 2022 has been wrapped. We're good. We're recording first thing 2023, our next record, and then we're hitting the road hard. So there'll be a lot of announcements for that later.
Cool.
So I just opened up a store here in San Antonio. I'm trying to get that going. I have a new rewards program and referral program now that I started at the Cosmic Peddler, where you can buy music and get money back, for buying music and also for referrals. I got an album coming out early next year. Hopefully, and I'll be talking to Ryan about this, because we're going to have a tour. The band's going to come in. They're going to tour. We're going to release the album in conjunction with a tour. It'll be early next year. It's going to be badass. Y'all going to love it. So that'll be sick.
Cool.
Am I next?
Yeah.
There's a little bit of a lull right now at Monster Riff because I'm taking off a little bit for the holidays, but new articles every Friday. And then we have, thanks to Ryan from Slightly Fuzz, we have new satire articles every other Tuesday. And with this being the last episode of the year, I just want to say I appreciate you guys. This has been one of my favorite projects from this year, and I'm excited to carry it into 2023.
Likewise. Yeah. Likewise.
Me too, man. Me too.
Yeah. Eddie.
Those are Opium Church. We're working on our second album right now, and hoping to get that wrapped up next year. And the Endless, we're tightening up some songs, and we'll be heading to the studio probably next year sometime too, and getting that out there as a debut album.
How's the solo stuff coming?
I'm still working on it.
I see you got some new instruments in your wheelhouse now.
Yeah, I got a nude was made in Egypt, so I'm taking lessons for that once a week.
Awesome.
So there'll be some different sounds on there.
You said Egypt?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're fucking badass, dude.
not the band Egypt.
Oh, what are you talking about? Oh,
Instrument.
Man. hear you, man. I heard Egypt. I was like, dude, they're fucking bad, man.
Yeah, but the band Egypt is pretty rad, though. Yeah.
I thought maybe he was saying he's working with Egypt on a project. I was like, what the fuck?
That's where the instrument was made.
Oh, nice, man. That sounds cool as shit too.
You got to drink what Paul's been drinking.
Hey, I'm just happy.
Blake?
Got a lot in store for 2023. So right now, taking a bit of a break from everything now that mixing and mastering is pretty much done. So getting my life together back home in my home state of Texas. So yeah, but should be a big year ahead.
Very cool.
Fuck yeah.
All right. Well, like I said, man, the Fuzz Club has been so much fun, and I hope everyone continues to check it out in the new year. But it's been a blast. It was a good year for us. It was a lot of fun. It was very collaborative. It was very democratic. We all picked shit that we like and don't like, and everyone just went into it with an open mind. Very cool. So hope everyone's enjoying it. Anyway, happy 2022. Here's the 2023.
Oh yeah, much love, everybody. That was awesome.
See ya.
See you later.
Yeah.